Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends, wherever you may be in the world. Alan Clements here. Today is part 3 of the protest talks. And I hope you're well. I hope your heart is in fine rhythm with your dignity, your conscience, your self-reflection, your honesty, your compassion, your generosity. However you choose to anoint your being with your religion, with your Dharma, with your God, with your goddess, with your Jesus, with your Allah, with your existentialism, with your beauty, with your caring, with your activism, and in this talk, with our protest. That inflection point in the soul when we have had enough. And there's a turning point in consciousness from the aberration of something and the feeling of it being wrong, and that inflection point in our heart and soul that says, I refuse to participate in this narrative. And I'm going to use my being to protest that aberration, that injustice, that wrong. I do believe that each of us are born equal in dignity and rights, to state what is in the preface of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Equally, we're born with this instinct for freedom, as Noam Chomsky talks about, the natural instincts that we all live with: sleeping, eating, procreating. And there's this deeper, more all-encompassing instinct for freedom. I don't think any of us truly wishes to suffer. I think all beings, perhaps animals, trees, everything that is alive in this God sphere, wants and seeks some form of happiness, aberrant as it may be for some. For others, it's clear that our happiness is not at the expense of other people or the environment as much as possible, complex as that is. So today is the third talk in the series. And I have a lot to share, a lot to feel. There's a lot going on for all of us. It's an unimaginable time, getting more unimaginable. And I'm thinking how to bring greater light to my fellow sisters and brothers in Burma, in Myanmar, an ancient land thousands of years old, situated in the South Asian area of the planet, a country the size of France or Germany or the state of Texas, 53 million people, 135 different languages and dialects, every major religion, every subsect, the home of classical Theravadan Buddhism at this point in our world, born out of the Indian subcontinent 2,600 years or so ago. Burma, the home of the 6th Great Buddhist Council in the early 1950s, brought forth by the Prime Minister at the time, U Nu, and overseen by 2 very prominent monks, one of which was my teacher, my preceptor, the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw, the chief questioner at the 6th Council, along with the chief answerer, Mingun Sayadaw, who I also met. And for 3 years they congregated and brought forth these ancient teachings known as Dhamma, contained in the Pali Canon known as the Tipitaka, the 3 baskets of transformational teachings. I feel blessed to have followed my own instinct for freedom way back in the day to take me across the lands from Iran, Turkey, Afghanistan, India to Burma, where eventually over time and circumstance and the strange play of karma and choice, I found myself living in a monastery in the city of Rangoon at a place called the Mahasi Satanayekta. And there I was able to birth my Dharma, birth my love of something that enriched my life sufficiently enough to compel me here 5 decades hence to keep on keeping on. The vocation of transformational awakening. It's been my religion, my Dharma, my yoga, my purpose, my sense of meaning, to employ the deliberate realization, manifestation of states of consciousness to influence states of consciousness, to radiate a more luminous, trustworthy, confident state of freedom. And my humble attempt at compassion and empathy, challenging as it is to state the obvious for all of us. At the root of it all is this instinct for freedom. Following that, if there's anything that I would wish to convey to the people, the boys and girls of the world, how well can we listen to the vocation of freedom and to have a responsibility to that vocation that includes connection of our lives with others and the environment to protect and enhance their freedom too, and not just living creatures, but the future of life. The vocation that we're all parts of this oceanic wave flow. And we're doing what we can in this strange ambient field called existence, with good and evil, right and wrong, love and hate, and all the dualities of life, to do all that we can to evolve the good, the true, and the beautiful. And the radiance of those 3 words for me are freedom. Freedom from and freedom into. Freedom overcoming greed, anger, and delusion. Freedom to flow into beauty, to kindness, to know the difference between love and attachment, fear, hate, kindness, compassion, to know the manifestation, the characteristics, the functions, the near enemies, the proximate causes of states of consciousness, to become more and more literate, Dhamma literate. Welcome to Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism 101 out of Burma, out of South Asia, at least as I understand it. And for me, the people of Burma hold not just Dhamma or Buddhism, they hold the sacredness of all these different intersecting traditions of consciousness in form. That's religion to me. Consciousness in form and in formlessness. And there's some deep belief systems that offer practices and trainings to elevate within this being, this interior beingness and beingness in context, a transformational intelligence and wisdom to root democracy's power, which is the love of the people who were democratic in their fidelity, in their strength, in their conviction, in freedom. And we've agreed on this planet back in the 1940s, based on the good vision of Eleanor Roosevelt and lots of other men and women at the time. And they brought forth this 3-page document known as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as the blueprint, the basic fabric of decency and democracy in countries that are civilized. And the basis of the United Nations is rooted in this universal declaration of rights, human rights, environmental rights. There should be animal rights. There should be oxygen rights. There should be anti-plastic rights. There should be deep, deep reverence for this incredibly abused document of 30 articles. Freedom of thought, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of religion, freedom to practice your heart, freedom to dream, freedom to adventure, freedom to care, freedom to pass information across frontiers, non-censorship. And it's a very delicate act, of course, to see our lives in context and how we live and how it affects and impacts others. And that sensitivity of impact and the gross expressions of them as war and genocide and massacre and rape and violence. Those are gross expressions of ignorant impact. People belligerently, arrogantly, scornfully, sociopathically embody violence. That's dictatorship. That's warmongering. That's the forever consciousness of profit mongers around the world at the expense of. The instinct for freedom is a protection in society to support your freedom and my freedom as equal, and my rights to speak up or your rights to speak up, and we can agree to disagree, and therefore we have a more civilized, democratic planet, to state something so ABCD, so first, second, and third grade, but yet here we are as humans in 2021, losing it with this incredible rise of totalitarianism, obedience and control and digital misinformation and manipulation and propaganda and mind control. And Orwell has all of a sudden incarnated again. Here it is, post 84, way back in the day when he wrote the book. And of course, many of you know that he lived in Burma during World War II as a policeman, as an occupier of the British Empire, in an area of Rangoon, the city known as Insane Township. Quite interesting to me. Where the most notorious prison built by England, by the imperialists, still exists, and it houses many of the activists and civilian leaders, nuns and monks, and the revolution that's still going on in Burma right at this second are housed, or I should say imprisoned, in insane prison. Whoa. What does it take? It's easy to rant and scream and rave and poeticize, but what does it take to create or instigate an existential, spiritual, religious, emotional upheaval in the psyche of the man and the woman who are on the fence somewhere among the billions, thinking, living, emoting, buying, selling, living, sleeping, hoping, fearing, all the things that human beings do that's somewhat normal. And how do those people who do care, who have a resonant relationship to conscience and an indirect, if not an immediate, respect for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in those 30 articles as the basis of sanity and civilization, how do you get them motivated to rise up and not be a brown shirt for the Fourth Reich? How do you get them to be electrified, even just a little bit, so that their mind go, oh my God, there's a bigger sphere here, there's a bigger world here, there's a bigger sense of connection here, there's a bigger meaning for freedom here, other than me being denied what I need to have to survive. I want to care about freedom for others as I care about the freedom for myself and my family. I want to make freedom my religion beyond my Christianity, beyond my Buddhism, beyond my sect, beyond my cult. I want to make freedom the ultimate asana of yoga. Authenticity and form with freedom, freedom and compassion, freedom and love, freedom and generosity, freedom that cares about life and the future of life. The ethos, the soul of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Yes, I do wish I could address the United Nations. Perhaps this little video will find its way right there, front and center, to 193 ambassadors. I don't know, Mr. Biden. Maybe you should watch this. I would love it. This is all based on my love of Burma. And more than that, the root in Dhamma, the root in freedom, a nonviolent revolution for decades. Yes, we have survived. We were successful based upon my good colleagues, Fergus Harlow and Jeffrey Hellman, that we've delivered an audiobook of Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, U Tin U, U Chi Mung, and so many other radical activist Dhamma savants of democracy against all odds, These words were transcribed in 1996, smuggled out by a friend of mine. The tapes were buried in the ground, in the earth in Burma. We could not get them out. They were eventually, through incredible stress and terror and challenge, they were smuggled out. And they're being refined at the moment. And the book, though, the audiobook, I've read both parts. I've read all the parts of these nearly 14 hours of transcripts to illuminate at this incredible moment in human history and in Burmese history that Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and many of the elected civilian leaders in Burma, including the president and so many others, are imprisoned in undisclosed places in Burma at this very moment as prisoners of conscience by an evil Orwellian military terrorist named Min Aung Hlaing and his indoctrinated men and women in uniform supplied by the sociopathic, psychopathic, nuclear-armed Russian Putin and Chinese Xi Jinping. What? Mafia is one thing, but to arm an evil terrorist, and we tolerate that? And these people are on the United Nations Security Council as 2 of the 15 votes on sanity on the Declaration of Human Rights' translation? Something's just not right here. So how do we mobilize each other at this moment where medical tyranny, political tyranny, social tyranny, religious tyranny, economic tyranny, environmental, everything is coming down like a rain of hell. And at the same time, okay, chill, man, chill. I'm not going to be a warmonger. I'm not going to be a fearmonger. I'm not going to be just try to instill in us an activism based on terror. But this instinct for freedom, the love of this instinct. Anyway, so I'm sorry to go on for so long here in the opening. There's so much I want to get to. But thank you for being a part of this. May I encourage you, get the audio book and send it, go Christmas early. Deliver it to 10, 20, 50, 100 different people. So what? I wish I could offer it freely. It just cannot get distributed other than through Audible and Amazon. But please send them to the United Nations, send them to leaders, send them to members of the parliament, send them to the EU, send them to everyone in the world, send them to the generals, to the military in Burma, translate them into French, Spanish, Portuguese, all the various languages. Let me know how I can support you in getting these words out. It took us 25 years to get that book off of text and into auditory vibration so that people could hear and feel. These words aren't 25 years ago. This is a deep psychological study in the power of conscience, universality of human rights, the beauty of democracy, the role of the citizen to uphold the virtues of the Declaration of Human Rights, the power of freedom that's in our hands, regardless of whether you're a young teenager, a woman, a man, elderly. Everyone can do their part, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi said. Everyone can do her and his part. It is your freedom. No one is an island, to state the obvious, but yet we live as islands of distance and denial and self-deception. And we've got to overcome these artificial separations and care for one another. To state the obvious, it's so cliche to even hear myself say it. Treat each other as brothers and sisters in family, as lovers, as teachers, as goddesses, as inseparable from our own decency. Our own dignity is intimately tied to that of other. How else can we move the planet of civilization forward? There will be no survivors if totalitarianism here takes root globally. Burma, there's a genocide on democracy. The people there are breathtakingly courageous. we have an example today to rise up in protest. I invite you, where is your inflection point? That turning point in your soul where you go, undeniable intimacy with this sense of freedom in me. I can get up and walk, I can bathe, I can brush my teeth, I can love, I can talk, I can tweet, I can write, I can post, I can kiss, I can move, I can dance, I can bend, I can do yoga, I can buy, I can give, I can be, all requiring a respect for conscious choice and intentionality deep in consciousness. Think if we didn't have access to intentionality, choice, and that navigational skills called ethical intelligence, spiritual intelligence. What about the intelligence of democracy, the intelligence of the universality of the Declaration of Human Rights? What is the intelligence of freedom of conscience, freedom of dignity, freedom of speech, freedom of expression? Right now I am enjoying on a flat screen with you, bouncing back to me, heart to heart, mind to mind, body to body, across the globe. Few as we be, I don't care about how many. It's that we're connecting as friends and family in freedom. We can move the world if we so choose to become force activators. May I encourage you, if you're watching this, go onto my Facebook stream, go to the audiobook, share it 100 times. Why not? Why not embarrass yourself because you care about freedom in Burma and the protest to the mandates, the mandates, the mandates? How many more policemen and doctors and nurses and firewomen and firemen need to basically say, we refuse to be needled? You're conflating this thing of our safety and the safety for humanity with authoritarianism. What are we doing to our military? What are we doing as a nation in America? What are other nations around the world calling themselves democratic doing? Burma is being left behind in the dark ages of oppressive totalitarianism and terrorism. At this very moment, we've managed to get these transcripts, recorded them against all odds, and we're delivering them as an audiobook to bring Daw Aung San Suu Kyi and her people's voices to the world. There's so many other ones. I just don't have the money and the time and the resources to record them. I wish I did. Please help me out. I would love to record my books with Fergus Harlow that we've done called Burma's Voices of Freedom. That's 2,000 pages of audio recordings. The voice of hope is the essence. Her words speaking for the 53 million people of Burma. We want freedom. This is how you achieve it. This is global revolution. This is how you enact it. Wherever you are, whatever home you live in, whatever nationality, whatever religion that you have, root yourself in the integrity of your own natural, organic instinct for freedom and begin to reflect, as she outlines, as the other leaders in these audiobooks outline, how to activate your protest, your revolution, and how to make love and compassion and kindness your protest music. It's not angry. These people are not angry. It's so rad to see how composed they are. I've spent years talking with them. I've been so honored and privileged by the people of Burma. I cannot thank them enough for the grace of their hearts and their courage to give me the chance to learn from them. Burma right now, and there are so many other places in the world, excuse my ignorance of the South American continent, the African continent, the Chinese, the whole Asian continent. I don't know much of the world history. I'm very, very connected, though, to Myanmar and to Burma, to the people. I can speak the language a little bit. I understand their culture. It is so magnificent. They're so spectacular. The people there, If we only had a window into their soul, into their culture, and all people, of course, are beautiful, but there's something really remarkable about the culture and the interplay of the people of this sacred land known as Burma. Please get the audiobook, share it everywhere. May I encourage you, break out of the habit of your own, whatever it is. Get 50 copies and send them as pre-Christmas around the world to leaders, to people, to the media. Review them, listen to them, study them, feel them. Go for it. It took us 25 years to deliver this. Yes, it's a plea. Be a force activi. Support this. Share it. Share. Okay. Okay. I wrote this book for my daughter, Sarabella. She'll be 15 coming up. I wrote this back in the day, I think it was 2011, 2012. It took almost 5 years to create. And there's one of the 108 reflections. It's called A Future to Believe in, the reflections on the art and activism of freedom. And I'm hoping to update it and to release it again, but that's another story. But I want to read you one short section by a mentor of mine who is in the audiobook, U Chi Mung. He doesn't get a lot of airtime, but those of you who have met U Chi Mung and know him, like many of the other leaders as well, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi is internationally famous. U Thien Nu, her colleague, also quite internationally famous, the former general of the army. U Chi Mung, not as well known. U Win Tin, talk about a courageous radical, and U Win Tain, so many anyway. But U Chi Mung was a special star in my soul. We spent a lot of time back in the day. I think he passed away, I don't know, 2006, was it? But this is one section dedicated to him in a conversation that I had with him. I want to read it to you. And I want to read it for the people of Burma especially, to give you hope, to give you courage, that you're not alone, that we hear you, we see you, and we're doing all that we possibly can to activate the good conscience of people, leaders, ordinary people worldwide, to respect their own instinct for freedom and to put that instinct into expression, to care, call it protest, call it action. Put your feet on the ground, put your fingers on your keyboard, put your voice on a recorder, put your body on a stage, put your hands on an instrument, sing, do all that you possibly can to voice your conscience of caring. We're all force multipliers. We're all revolutionaries. We're all activists. And right now I'm making a global plea to support the people of Burma and equally stop in its tracks the march of global totalitarianism. I'm going to get into that in this series of talks coming up. But right now I'm focusing pretty much on Burma. It starts with, well, let me just read here. And thank you for tuning in. And may I encourage you, please keep sharing while you're listening. On one of my final days in Burma back in 1996, this is when the Voice of Hope and my conversations with U Chi Mung, U Thien Nu, U Win Tain, Daw Aung San Suu Kyi, so many others were recorded. And now we've got them and they're in this audiobook called The Voice of Hope, available on Audible and Amazon. But this is in the last final days of my time in Rangoon back in 96. It says, on one of my final days in Burma back in 96, I met with U Chi Mung, my 80-year-old Burmese friend and mentor. Sit back if I can encourage you. He's a genius. As a freedom fighter in Burma's nonviolent revolution, he had been imprisoned twice, spending 11 years in solitary confinement. I have to pause right here and honor the nearly 7,000 men and women right now in prison in Burma for their political, spiritual views. They are political prisoners, incarcerated, tortured, some killed by the former general of Burma's army, the terrorist Ming Online, and his most recently designated terrorist organization on planet Earth, which is in full throttle to be legally, if there is such a word, legally labeled as a terrorist organization, and an entire army, the former army of Burma, run by the terrorists, the Pol Pot of Burma, Ming Online, is being now labeled worldwide by government leaders worldwide as a terrorist organization. It's a Taliban. It's a Boko Haram. It's a Khmer Rouge that's taken over a country. And we think the Taliban is evil, which they are. We think Boko Haram and their incredible rape of girls and women is unthinkably reprehensible, which is, of course, it's epic evil. What's going down in Burma right now is unimaginable. I mean, if I were President Biden, I would bring in warships and planes tomorrow. I would show some stealth. That's not Super Hawk. That's basically a respect for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the right to protect nations being violated with crimes against humanity. In Burma, it's a genocide on democracy, crimes against men and women, our brothers and sisters as species on this planet, as citizens of democracy. We're allowing, strangely as it is, I live right here in this neighborhood. If I heard screams of the family and we heard gunshots and rapes, and I said, well, I think we should have a vote on what we should do about it. And it's like, we shouldn't interfere with their domestic issues. Just let them be raped and killed and tortured. Hello, that doesn't work for me. It's incredible impotence, incompetence, arrogance, maliciousness, apartheid by our governments worldwide not to intervene in Burma. But let me just go on here before I just lose it completely. He spent 11 years in solitary confinement. I feared he would be rearrested at any moment. I asked him, quote, "Sir, if you are rearrested, what words would you like to leave for others to carry on the struggle for freedom?" In a slow and reflective tone, he replied, "For the coming generations," and please translate this into Burmese, send it around the country, around the world, give them hope. "For the coming generations, I would emphasize two most important things: education and a deep sense of history. Knowledge is essential," he said. "They should learn about the world at large. This will assist them in shaping their own lives freely. To grasp history is to grasp the importance of interrelatedness," he said. "The causes, conditions, and consequences of thought and action, and how they affect the development or demise of civilization. Human existence at large. Everyone," he says, "plays a part." This was U Chi Mong. He spoke this way all the time. "The gift of life," he goes on, "is to play that part with profound responsibility. The 20th century has taught us great lessons in all aspects of human involvement. There have been some advances humankind could never have imagined. In this century, we have seen the folly of ideologies such as fascism, communism, totalitarianism, which are inconsistent with creativity and the flourishing of the spirit. From the 18th century came the rise of the British Empire that sent a plague of exploitation around the world, yet it too was humbled. We have witnessed all types of conflict, from urban violence to global wars, from bolt-action rifles to nuclear bombs typewriters to computers, a revolution in music and dance. There's just so much, and within it all have come a few good women and men with vision. That remarkable gift to see our tomorrow today. This is U Chi Mung. This is one of the great leaders of Myanmar. Compare that to that evil terrorist, Ming Online. Ming Online, listen to this gentleman's words. Let it into your heart. If you're the family member of Ming Online, play this for your father. If you're the wife, play it to your husband. Get it into his conscience. He too has conscience. He too has an instinct for freedom. There is redemption in the heart, I do believe, of everyone. U Chi Mung goes on to say, their gifts are renewing our hopes for the future of the planet and our survival as a species. It's all about interrelatedness. From its full exploration, I believe, will come the flourishing of civilization and not its untimely demise. He paused briefly. As for me, Alan, don't worry. What I care about the most and practice off and on throughout the day is to be aware. That's all, to be aware. See, I have pieces of paper in my pockets that I carry with me. Quotes, inspiring reminders. They refocus my mind on the here and now. That is the most important thing to me, to be present, awake, aware. My 11 years in prison were severe, but I used the time to my advantage, mind-blowing. I never forget that what I am seeing now, that pale green line streaking across the pond or the shadow of the tree across your leg, disappears the moment I turn my face. This is life's simplicity. Just the here and now, aware that nothing is impermanent. That barbed wired fence across the back of Aung San Suu Kyi's compound over there, why worry about the presence of such an irritant, he said. It's insignificant. Now, if I worry about anything, it's that I might lose this sense of awareness. Hear that? That mindful intelligence he's speaking to. That I might lose this sense of informed awareness. Conscience he's pointing to. A respect for our instinct for freedom and the manifestation of revolution of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Protect freedom of speech. Freedom of mind. So I guard it, he said, as something precious. Rad. Things past that I have seen. Life is what you make it now. So let us put our energies into life, into understanding our interrelatedness. In this way, I try not to lose my perspective. I end with 2 paragraphs. I spent 6 months meeting with this wise statesman. I had bonded deeply with all he stood for, with Burma's struggle for freedom and how their struggle over there is connected with our struggle for freedom right here. Later in the day, as we walked, and as he walked me to the door of his home, he said, "Don't worry. When death comes, let it come. What I do fear, however, is that I would be so weak that I would choose the easy way out." Listen to this. To lie around in bed all day and read some book on the collapse of yet another totalitarian regime. We both laughed and said goodbye. We both laughed and said goodbye. That was the last time I saw my mentor, U Chi Mung, but not the last time I've thought of him and feel the people of Burma, feel the people in America and the European Union in all the places around the world right now, struggling for our own identity, our own survival, our own fear of persecution, trying to understand disinformation, misinformation from truth and facts and science, and having the moral courage, the mindful intelligence to rise up and embody our instinct for freedom and to manifest our love and compassion and protest. May I encourage you as I close today in this third installment of my protest series, share this video, share our post on the audiobook, The Voice of Hope. Please share it 1,000 times. Buy the book, buy the audiobook, share it with friends. Give them the gift of conscience and action. Activate, activate, elevate. Let's put our mind into dynamic action. Let us understand the importance of deep interrelatedness, not just together in the ecosystem of life now, but the future of life and the future of freedom. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of my life. God willing, I will continue on with series 4 in this protest series of talks and begin to weave it into the greater picture of how violations are taking place in democratic societies, manipulation, thought control, indoctrination, and how to break free from the desired hypnosis of the oligarchs, of government, of corporate media, and how to protect and sanctify our autonomy in respect to our interrelatedness with life, how to become more active in our revolutionary sense of conscience and dignity in action. I do believe that we're all revolutionaries. Even the boys and girls have that deep sense of trust, of violation, and that intrinsic love of freedom, that instinct for freedom inborn in every living creature. So from my heart to yours, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being in my life, and hope to see you tomorrow. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.